Okay, so this is our empathy circle practice. We have the topic is, what is your experience of the empathy circle? So it's sort of a self exploration of the empathy circle practice itself. Since everyone here is familiar with the empathy circle and how it works, we can begin right away and just jump right into it. And I'll keep, I guess we can also do away with time, and let's like 10 minutes. Like if we're going past 10 minutes, everybody just keeps going, maybe we'll have a 10-minute time limit. Let me set the stopwatch for that. Kind of create. So yeah, so like I'll set the time, 10 minutes, 00 set. So the question is what is your experience of taking part in the empathy circle? And I will actually start and speak to Carolina.
Okay. I'm listening.
So what is my experience? Yeah, so there's a wide experience, that I have with the empathy circle. And I guess for me, there's a lot of sort of hope. I feel a sense of hope, take with the empathy circle practice, that it's something that's very easy and easy to do with people. So let me just pause there.
Okay, so if I understand you correctly, when you're practicing empathy circle, you feel kind of hope that you may understand other people and kind of connect to them, to their feelings. Is it correct?
Yeah, it's like I have hope in the practice that, there's so much sort of conflict in the world in personal relationships that I find just the basics of empathic listening or active listening or deep listening, I just see how well that works for people to connect with each other. And there's no clear practice, and this is like the empathy circle is a practice. So when I take part in it, part of me just feels hopeful in terms of just being in a circle. It kind of gives me a feeling of hope.
So a small correction, that you kind of feel, you find hope in practicing empathy circle, and there is, you see so many conflicts around the world and everywhere, and you see how empathy circle might be helpful to people in conflict when they use this method or practice empathy circle to kind of resolve their problems, and it kind of gives you hope that this is the way, I suppose, to build your the culture, more empathic culture.
Yeah.
Is it correct?
That's it. Yeah, that's it. To build a culture that is based on empathy, because I just see that for a sense of well-being, for being in a culture where there's a sense of well-being. So I guess I see this as like one little step, towards that. It's not the whole thing, but it's just one first step that anybody can quickly learn. And then there's so much more to add to it. But if, I just feel that if I can sort of replicate it, I'm kind of contributing to the world. I'm kind of doing something in my life where I have a feeling of contribution. And I even see that when I go out and mediate between people who are in conflict, and I just see them connecting with each other, and just based on this practice, it just feels really good. I mean, there's really a real good feeling to be able to contribute to people. Yep.
Well, please stop there, because it's a lot to reflect. So first, what I heard was that that you think that this is kind of first step to build this culture of empathy, and you use the word well-being.
Well-being.
that this is kind of state of that person can achieve through the empathic talk with each other. And this for you is a kind of first step to achieve this culture of empathy through everyone personal well-being that is kind of achieved through empathy dialogue. Very complicated sentence, but I hope
That's the
I
essence.
express.
Yeah.
Yeah. Uh, I think I lost something
The
now.
other was my sense of contribution. Like I have a feeling
Oh
of
yeah, yeah,
contribution. For me,
yeah,
that's kind of important. It feels good, just
yeah, yeah. You said that you feel good with kind of contributing to the culture, to the society. Your kind of little the what you do. Everyone has kind of add something to common good, and this is your part. You put in common good, and it gives you good feeling. You feel good with that.
yeah, I feel fully heard. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you. It's not easy, Celia, as you see, I don't speak English very well, so I sometimes have problem with understanding or reflecting. Okay.
Yeah, it's your second
So
language.
yeah. And actually, I learned lately. So I'm choosing you, Celia.
Thank you.
And lately I learned that actually we are more analytic in our second language than in our mother tongue, because we learn in the kind of logical way other languages. So we kind of develop our more rational part of our brain, when in our own, if in our mother tongue we speak the other half of our brain, and we are more emotional and more kind of intuitional. Yeah, I stopped there.
Yeah, so yeah, for us to know that your language is really still thinking what to say, and so that it comes a little broken, you apologize for that. But also you explain that when you learn a second language, it's more analytical, because you learn via how to learn the words, and you don't learn via the mother giving over the language in all the emotional parts. So it's also even different sides of the brain that flash up and that
Yeah.
are working. Okay.
So I don't have much experience in my mother tongue doing empathy circle, and I'm very curious how it will go. I hope in very short time I would do that with my friends, with my colleagues from the movement I'm involved with. I stop there.
So that you really hope to also transfer the language that you now learn in English of the empathy way of talking, to really do that with your mother language as well, and finding the words and crafting the sentences.
Yeah. Probably it will be more emotional and kind of, intuitive. I'm very curious about it. What I think about empathy dialogue, actually, for years I was engaged politically, or I was social activist, for example, in Polish Red Cross, for many years, and I was engaged in some political organizations. And actually now I'm involved in Extinction Rebellion, Edwin mentioned before we start to recording. And well, there is a lot of conflicts in politics, and people label each other and don't try to hear each other. And I feel this is the gap we need to fill up. I'm not sure if it's right word, but kind of well, bridge this gap between different sides of politics, because otherwise we can only fight with each other, and I mean arm with arm. It might be only a war. We have to keep communicate. We have to find a way to find the common ground. That's the first thing. I stop there.
Yeah, so you are already a long time political activist, and even in a rebellion group that
Yeah.
been mentioned. But you, because also the main thing is that you see in politics there are really people stand their own belief and cannot hear the other person. So to bridge that gap, that is your main passion. And that you also feel an empathy circle could contribute to that. I don't know if you said that, but
Yeah.
that's what I
Yeah.
try to pick up. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
yeah, and especially in politics, it seems like we talk different to each other than in regular language. It's like,
Yeah. And well, actually, because I'm kind of involved in non-violent concepts of non-violence, practice of non-violence. I'm doing a lot in this field, and I'm very deep in it. That's how I found Edwin's team, what he's doing, and I realized that empathy dialogue actually is a brilliant tool to try communicate with my enemies. I don't believe they're truly enemies. We might disagree, but it doesn't mean for me that we are truly enemies. So I want to communicate them, and I want to learn how to do that.
right. So
Respecting them.
Right.
Okay.
You're really after how to communicate with your enemy, so to say, and that you want to even feel respect for them, and that you have done a lot of nonviolent communication work, and also that's how you found the group of Edwin. And that's, yeah, I think the main thing there is that you want to bridge that gap, and you're really passionate about it. And you think this is a great tool to use to really have the dialogue and do that, bridging that gap there. So
Yeah. And I remember looking into Edwin post on our group, and I shared with our today's event, our meeting we are now in, and there were different questions everybody could check. I choose that I want to learn how to hear more deeply, and I also check if I can speak more empathically, because it's something about nonviolent communication of Marshall Rosenberg, how we speak to others. It's not only how we hear others, but also how we speak to others. There are two sides of the empathy. We can speak also in empathic way. So I would like to learn how to do that, because I think and I feel that very often we talk kind of instinctively. We don't think about the mode we talking to others and we listen to others. And we should be more aware of it, it's very important to be aware how I communicate with other people. And yeah, I stopped there.
Yeah, so you see communication as a whole thing, not only the listening part, but especially also the speaking part. And how do you speak in an empathic way? And you would really want to learn that. And that was another reason why you wanted to join and
Yeah.
wanted to know more. And it links to your nonviolent communication passion.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. I feel heard, fully heard. Thank you.
Thank you. Edwin, can I speak to you?
Listening.
Yeah. So I was very, very intrigued when I heard about Edwin and the culture of empathy. And that is, I thought, the culture of empathy, if we just could change that whole mindset. And then I learned the empathy circle, which was something that I had not heard of before, meaning really completely reflecting what a person says. I'll stop there.
Yeah, so when you heard about the culture of empathy, it sounds like it really resonated with you. And then there was the empathy circle process itself. And that seemed like you were really intrigued by it, or you saw the value of it, or
yeah, it was a new aspect. It was like I call it now, and I incorporate it in my own training as a first exercise. The first exercise: can you really pick up the words of a person? Just pick up the words of a person.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, you see it as a first step, and you're actually using it in your trainings now. Is, hey, can you do this first step? Just hear the words of the person. And,
yeah. And I start even with just one sentence, and often one word of the sentence. People say already, oh, what is that word?
Mm-hmm. So you even break it down to the one word in the sentence. What was the word that they used? So you're really breaking it down to really small steps.
Right. But then for me, next steps are actually major in the communication, and that is that you give the feedback in your own words. So not per se parroting what the other person says, but get the gist of the message and feed that back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so you just try to get people to sort of parrot, even to start with, but then to have them kind of reflect back the gist and a little bit deeper perhaps in their own words, or
not that I would go deeper than what they said, but giving synonyms for them so that they can see their own words from a different angle.
Mm-hmm. So have them say it back in different words, similar words, or just get the essence or the gist, as you say, of it.
Right.
In the reflection.
And that is so the other side of the empathy circle, like really reflecting almost the whole thing back, the whole package back, I thought was often very difficult to do for me. I really had to step back, and then I often thought this doesn't go anywhere or so.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So your sense was, it's hard to do just to reflect back the words, and it's kind of like not leading to anything. It's not going anywhere.
Yeah, I was more busy with my own impossibility to capture the words, with my own struggle of memorizing, than with helping you. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So in just reflecting all the words, it's like there's this stress of trying to remember the words instead of sort of contributing to the person, what they're saying.
Right. So I would see the empathy circle as a very valid tool, but if you go the step further, you need to let it loose and try to incorporate like I say, the synonyms and the gist of the message. Is this what you actually want to say?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so you're seeing that that was sort of blocking you in terms of kind of, your sounds like maybe feeling a bit stressed about having to remember what was said.
Mm-hmm.
And you want to take it a bit farther to sort of let it loose, so you don't have to be so specific in reflecting the words.
Right.
But, kind of create more space and sort of taking it a little bit deeper, I guess.
And also to wait till a person is done, and then you have to record, put the record button back and then repeat what the person said. However, as a practice to understand that, do we actually hear what a person says? I think it's still fabulous. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it is a good practice, if you're calling a fabulous practice, just to really see if you're really hearing what the person says.
Yeah, so I think it has a great value there. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's really good as a kind of a practice, as a first step.
Right.
Kind of a practice to make sure, just to see, are you hearing what the person says?
Right.
Uh-huh.
And why all of a sudden I realized, wait a minute, here I go the other route because of the political involvement, because I would like to come to conflict resolution. And with political divides, you are not in a position that you can make changes. So that was frustrating for me, that I thought, okay, someone left and right, and yeah, okay, they can finally hear each other, and then what?
Mm-hmm.
What's the impact of that?
Yeah, so you're kind of like wondering about the political left and right discussions, like, they just come and they start hearing each other, but then what? Kind of, where does it go? And it seems like it's not going anywhere.
Yeah, how would that work for a benefit of collaboration? Or but of course I stepped out there, and you have so much more experience, so you may say how did work out.
Yeah, so you're kind of like, oh, maybe how did it work out?
Yeah.
What's the outcome of it? Do you have any stories or something about that?
Sure.
So maybe I have something to add to it.
So that's why I'm here.
Yeah, so kind of curiosity, like, where does this go?
Sure. And see the big value of it, definitely, and my support for
Mm-hmm.
work.
Yeah, it's valuable, and you're supportive of it. And
yeah, that is it for now.
okay. Oh, good.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I'll speak back to you then, just to change the direction here. Yeah, I know you're saying that the empathy circle is just about reflecting back the words, but for me, it's not. It's about reflecting back the essence. So there's a whole. You can recap. You can summarize. You can paraphrase. You can just give back the essence, or you can parrot if you want. So I've never seen the empathy circle as just you have to remember everything that people have said. Sometimes people seem to kind of start doing that, but it's not the intention of the empathy circle. That the intention is to reflect back or recap your understanding of what the person has said, and ideally in your own words, without it being word for word.
Oh, okay. So it is not even the aim of the empathy circle to really get the words back, like a parroting thing. But we started doing it.
Yeah.
And, and that happened.
Yeah, it seems for people who haven't done it, they tend to kind of start that way if they're kind of unfamiliar with the practice. But I don't see that. I see it just as, maybe people feel comfortable with it, but the intention is really to deepen you know, to deepen the listening. And you know, and people could speak longer, and then you just sort of recap in a few words, kind of the essence. That's fine. So it's kind of like what, actually, it's kind of like the intention, really, if I think about it, is for the speaker to feel like they've been understood, and however that works is good, you know.
So it does not need, you say it doesn't need to be all these words. It is actually only about, does this person feel heard?
Yeah. And supported, I think, too, which is, I think, what you're talking about is you want to support the person in moving forward in their experience, which is what the intention is. Yeah. If you just reflect that last part, the supporting, part.
Yeah, so that they also feel they can support someone in going a little deeper in themselves, in their own thoughts and their ideas.
Yeah, and I think that needs more explanation. There needs to be more really simple sort of training material, and I'm starting to work on that, like an introduction to the empathy circle for people who just don't know anything about it, and for it to be really well articulated and just break down all the different pieces and be able to convey the essence of it and in very simple to understand. So that's kind of my big project now to really focus on.
Oh, so you're already focused on a project to really make it more understandable for people how the process really works.
Yeah. Because that's like a misconception. I mean, a lot of people think, oh, I got to repeat back all the words. You don't. You could just say a few words, but that hasn't been, well explained. And there hasn't been samples too, right? There could be multiple examples of, somebody speaking in different ways that they reflect back. So I'm really seeing that they really need to get the training material, the introductory training material needs to be sort of a focus.
Yeah, so you see that you are busy with that. It's a big task, and you make new training material, and it would be nice if then that would be visible, that people can do differently.
Right. So it'll be more introduction, and there was something else. In terms of, you talked about there's different sort of areas where we can use the empathic, and we're pretty talking about active listening, empathic listening. How do we sort of teach people this in a easy way, and where it can be applied. So, it can be applied personally, which is sort of what you've been focusing on, in the family, in the political. So there's a lot of different realms. And in terms of the family, I've been doing these family empathy circles. We just did one last Sunday with my family. We spent 4.5 hours doing empathic listening, so I think it's valid in every different area. It can be applied to, so many different areas with different focuses. And, I guess, so. And I guess for me, it's like, what focus, how can we get it into the culture as much as, how can we make it really mass produce it, make it as accessible? Because in a sense, my intention is that every person in the world, if every person in the world learned how to just facilitate an empathy circle, it would really do a lot to kind of move in that culture of empathy building practice. So this is just like that first step, or a first step. Yeah,
so that you see it really as a culture, and even in your family, you even did a 4-hour session, and you feel that that is really beneficial and beneficial in every area, actually. So if it could just be a practice, if everybody could know how to facilitate between people, then we would move a step up.
Exactly. Step forward. Step up, step forward. So I guess I see it as sort of a path, and the empathy circle is kind of like this first step, very accessible path. But we need all those things that you're doing and talking about. Is like, how do we deepen the practice, and and how do we make it as accessible as possible for people. So, and send people in that direction to build, to get deeper and deeper. Like Carolina is saying, part of that is being able to speak more empathically too, speaking, which is going to be speaking from felt experience, what is your felt experience? You can really contribute to the empathic relationship. So there's so much work to do to, really articulate this and make it accessible. And
you yourself see it also as the first step of a bigger training, and that like Carolina says, that she wants to learn more, and the next steps, what comes all in place for you to learn, and what could you, how more deeper could you go?
Yeah. And the empathy circle, I have seen that it can hold these conflicts in the political world, so I have had, in the empathy tent, we have had the political left and political right come together on a topic. And in terms of the benefits of it, is it de-escalates the conflict.
Yeah.
It's like, I've seen it over and over again. I mean, these people are screaming and yelling at each other, and the conflict is just escalating at these rallies. And you bring the people together to just hear each other. And, it's like a first step just to de-escalate. And they say, oh, they're sort of learning. There is a pathway to de-escalate this.
Yeah. So
one is they learn the de-escalation, that there is this methodology. And second, they end in hugs. These people are like hugging each other. So I think we have to value just the de-escalation and the sense of connection that happens. And we're not focusing on all the, like, how do we work together yet? Because I can't do it all. It's like there's only got so much time and energy, but if we can get this first step, it just seems that the empathy circle kind of holds that first step. And, and we need like thousands of people to be working on developing, it seems to me, all those different, deeper next steps, I think are kind of needed for developing this.
Right. So, so it is the fact that you can de-escalate a conflict, that you can contribute to get down the energy and the anger and whatever, and that people can calm down and even can end up in hugging each other.
Yeah.
And that is a value that is incredible.
Yeah.
But you also know that that's it. You cannot see how it goes further unless there's more practice or a continuing story there. But at least if this brings it already, then that's huge.
Yeah.
And if we have so many more facilitators worldwide, then that would help.
Yeah, exactly. So, and there's all the different practices. There's a whole constellation of practices. There's, nonviolent communication. There's a whole therapeutic. There's what the work that you're doing. There's focusing. There's human-centered design. So there's all these practices, these constellations of practices. I just see that here's a first step that can kind of lead into all those other practices. So the empathy circle, I'm just seeing as an easy first step that can kind of open into these other practices.
Right. You are very much aware that there are way more other different ways to go, but that this is really a first practice, and that can be the basis, actually. And from there on, people can elaborate. Yeah.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, feel fully heard. Went a little over even. Thanks.
Well, I wanted to straight away say something back to you.
Okay.
If you don't mind.
Sure.
And that is that the moment that you said, I want you to reflect that back, that is what got me in stress. Mm-hmm. I thought, oh gosh, what did I miss? What did he say? And then I am busy with me, and I am not a help for you. And there is where I would never say that. yeah, if I do not feel heard, I have to stand up. I have to take responsibility for me. I have to express myself more clearly. I cannot demand of someone else to hear me. It's not a demand. It's a gift. It's a gift. It's yeah, something that someone gives to you. So you cannot say, I want more of it. Just tell me more.
Mm-hmm.
No. Okay. I was not clear enough. I have to repeat it. Repeat it then, what you said. If I don't feed it back, repeat it and grab it one more time. Yeah.
Okay, so you're feeling some stress. When I said, "Oh, would you reflect that back?" and then sort of asking that created some stress. You noticed some stress in you that, oh, I have to reflect this back, and you sort of tying it in with that the reflection is a gift. So you would not sort of request that of someone because you want it to be sort of given more freely.
Well, you have to have the responsibility as speaker, if you are not fully heard, to make yourself more clear and repeat something that you want to still munch about, and someone did not say back to you, or you wonder if they understood you. Like a child would say, no, I didn't say that, you know? And then they stand up for themselves. And that is what I would add to empathy circle, that stand up for yourself. If you're the speaker, you are responsible for your own being heard. It's not the task of the other person to hear you. Yes, it's their practice, but it's not on them. The focus is not on the person who listens. The focus is on the person who speaks.
Mm-hmm. So you're saying that there's a sense of focus, in sense that the focus is on the speaker to speak clearly in a way that they can be reflected, and it's not on the listener to be in their listening. So to put the responsibility on the speaker.
Right. And even if we teach that in an empathy circle, we teach listening, right? So the focus is on, did I hear correctly what you said? It still is a service. It's not the main thing. The main thing is the person who speaks.
Yeah. So it's you're saying that the listener is offering a service, but the responsibility is on the speaker.
Yeah. And in practicing speaking or this circle, that is an important message for them to know as well. Because if you facilitate a circle, you mention these rights, so to say, to each of them. You as a speaker are responsible for your own happiness. You have to make yourself clear. This is a service being given to you, and he's feeding you back, and then we do vice versa. Otherwise you get into the situation of that, no, you didn't hear me correctly, or you're just bullshitting me, so then the focus is on the listener. Yeah, I don't know if I'm clear enough there.
Yeah, so you're trying to kind of clarify this. You're not sure if you're clear, and that you're wanting to see where the focus of responsibility is, being clear that the focus of responsibility is on the speaker, and that should be kind of set up at the beginning of the circle to be clear on who has the responsibility.
Yes. And the focus.
Focus.
Yeah, because otherwise the focus goes to the person who listens. And we say, I didn't listen to it.
You don't want to put the focus on the listener. It's like you have to reflect back accurately, or you'll be judged or whatever. Yeah. The focus is on you as the speaker to be clear and express yourself clearly.
Correctly, yes. Mm-hmm. And that is tricky because you are here to learn to listen, right? So do you get an A or a B, for listening? No. If we can step away of I doing it correctly, and the person who says, oh, she missed that one part of me, let me repeat it. And then the speaker can feel more empowered to stand up for what I want to say.
So there, instead of the speaker saying, oh, you missed this one piece, I'm quite sure I got it. They can stand up for themselves more instead of putting it on the other person. They could say it. They could say it themselves more clearly.
Right. Because also another thing that's, you know, after doing so many circles, I realized the speaker can become lazy, can just wander about and then listen to his own words back because, you know, he's like the recording, he's gonna hear the recording one more time. And if he is responsible for getting across his message, his passion can be heard.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so if you're a speaker, you could get kind of, oh, I'm just being heard, I'm kind of lazy. You're not really taking responsibility for kind of being clear and being sensitive to the listener so that they can really get what they're saying. So they kind of put it all on the listener instead of being sort of aware of the relationship. And
yeah, I feel heard. Thank you.
Okay. Then I'll speak to Carolina.
Okay, I'm listening.
Yeah, that's interesting. I've seen that too. That the listener, the speaker, has a responsibility to, you know, kind of be heard the way that they want to be heard. You know, it's like so kind of this sense of responsibility. I'm kind of trying to think sense into it, so to get more clarity about it.
So you sort of responding to what Celia said, and you think that there is this part of empathy circle where it's responsibility of speaker. So we should put more. Actually, we should put more attention to the job the speaker does. I'm sorry.
Yeah. And I do think, I kind of, the thing that's coming up for me is that I said, so there was a piece that I wanted to have heard. It's like I would like to have this feeling heard. I would like to have it sort of reflected. And so I said, oh, could you reflect that last piece? And so it's sort of, so I'm trying to sense into that in a sense that Celia could have said, oh, what I'm hearing is you really want to have that last part be heard. So if she would have reflected what I had said, she could have, instead of just reflecting what that piece was, she could have reflected the request for that piece to be heard. So I'm trying to just make sense out of it. Yeah.
So what I'm hearing, there is sort of, well, it's not misunderstanding. It's you're trying to kind of empathize or trying to get to the feelings of Celia when you ask her for reflecting, and it was rather sort of mechanical from you. There is something I said and I stopped there. You could say stop there. You said, could you reflect that? It was kind of mechanical, as I understand from your side, but it was more emotional for Celia, if I understand. And you have kind of problem with understanding that. Is it correct?
Not quite. I don't see it as mechanical. It's like I sensed in myself that I wanted the feeling of that being heard. If I heard that part, I think I would feel more of a sense of connection, like, oh, you really got me where I was. So it would have given me a sense of more connection and understanding. So I am trying to
Okay.
understand Celia's point, but it's like that was the first part. I just wanted that sense.
Okay.
Just that one piece wasn't heard, and it would be. I would have liked to that.
So you're trying to understand what Celia means, but there was a part of what you were saying, and that was important to you, and you very deeply wanted to be heard on this part of
Mm-hmm.
what you were saying, and you actually asked for that because that was your need.
Yeah.
And you have a kind of problem with understanding fully Celia need, as I
Yeah, the
understand.
dynamics that she's speaking to. I want to understand it because I'm excited about learning and growing and sort of deepening the empathic listening practice. But it's not, I don't quite understand that still don't have like real deep clarity about about that dynamic. So I'm trying to
Okay, so
understand
for
it.
you, if I understand you correctly, you struggling for growing and deepening this process of empathy dialogue, but you still have some kind of problems with truly understanding the point. You see kind of dissonance between you and Celia with understanding some moments in process.
Yeah,
Is
it's
it
not so
correct?
much dissonance. I just don't understand. I don't have a clear grasp of it. You know, I don't
Okay,
feel like we're in conflict or anything. It's like, oh, I really want to understand. I'm excited to
okay,
understand. You know, it's like it's just I'm just not quite. I'm not really just sensing. I sense my need for being heard and understood. I sense. Celia's sort of anxiety about having to reflect back. And I'm trying to sort of, you know, work that through to have a sense of clarity of what her, you know, points are
okay.
about responsibility.
So you need kind of, well, you use word clarity between different you're trying to truly understand the difference and the kind of a little bit different approach. You needed to be heard, but you created kind of anxiety in Celia, and you're trying to catch that point, and you still don't fully, you don't have clearance on it. You
Yeah.
don't still know what it's true, what truly it is.
Yeah.
Somehow you don't have access to that, and you're
Yeah.
struggling to get to have access to this
Yeah. And I don't
different.
think that I caused anxiety in Celia. It was the response. Whatever I said was her response was anxiety. I'm not taking responsibility for her anxiety. So,
Okay, okay, so you don't feel responsible for that feeling of anxiety that Celia experienced.
uh-huh.
It's kind of confusing for you. Is it correct?
Well, it wasn't that the larger picture is confusing about responsibility and who's responsible for what and who takes response and how to deepen the empathic listening, you know, practice and how the speaker
Mhm.
takes responsibility. So I guess I'm just still trying to
So,
get a sense of clarity, and I'm kind of exploring it in sort of a chaotic
mhm.
way.
So I hope I got to your point because, well, uh, you actually doubt about what Celia said. You have different understanding of this process and you can't fully agree, but you are open to explore the issue Celia gave us to discuss. You are interested in, however, you feel like you can't agree with her about responsibility.
Oh, it's not that it's not that I doubt her or disagree. Is I'm curious. The part about being curious and trying to understand. I don't have any doubt. I don't have any conflict with what she's saying.
Okay.
I have
so
I have just pure curiosity and kind of excitement about trying to understand this. But I feel like I'm not quite understanding it to the depth that I would like to.
So it's rather, it's not about not agreeing or doubting, it's rather like something new came out and you have to explore the thing that came out. It's maybe not something new, but sort of not explore it, and you want to go deeper to
Exactly.
this problem.
Yeah. I'm grateful for the problem because it's a good way to learn too. So I'm grateful for the topic.
And
my gratitude.
And you are great. You express your gratitude to Celia to give you that aspect of empathy circle, empathy dialogue, because it's a new issue you have to explore.
Yes.
So you are thankful, grateful to her.
Yeah, thank you. I feel grateful to you too I feel fully heard.
Thank you. That was difficult because I tried to go to your feelings, emotions, and as we talked probably last week, we're talking about it, and we're talking about thoughts that are actually our feelings. So that was that sort of struggle I experienced.
Who are you speaking to?
Okay. Well, I don't know whom to speak. Well, I tried to Celia to give her chance to respond to you, maybe. So, Celia, I'm choosing you. And I have the whole list of things I note down and I want to share with you. And that will be difficult because there is a lot of it. Okay.
You got a whole list that you would want to run by me.
No, I hope both of you will be listening to me, and I hope I can add my little, my 2 pennies to the whole discussion.
Your contribution. Yeah.
Yeah. So first thing is about this moment of listening to the other person and hearing her or him. I think that to truly hear what somebody says, I have to confront this with my own experience somehow. I have to kind of associate that with what I already know. It's something like a cognition process. We can't realize or see or acknowledge something we can't associate with something we already know. That's how our cognition system operates. So when we listen to somebody, we have to kind of confront with our own experience what this person says. And this is probably the way we hear somebody. I stop there.
Yeah, so the way we hear somebody is by matching it with what we already know and what we, you didn't say programming, but I could, see it is in us and what we recognize and how we, even what it means to us, like what they say, what is in me that recognizes that.
Yes, it's kind of cognition process, listening to somebody and hearing somebody is a cognition process, simply.
Yeah, cognition thing is really thinking and in your mind, and
and So when we're listening somebody, we kind of filter what comes to us through our experience, through our cognition system, our cognition. I don't know if you use in English cognition system word or something like that.
Uh, I have a different name for it, but you say cognition system. That's.
I'm curious. You can use your word. I'm curious of it. So it's the thing, the fact that we kind of filter what we hear through
Yeah.
us, and we
Yeah.
give it back. So this is the process of hearing and reflecting. That's how I see it.
Right. You see the whole process of hearing, like it comes in to you, and then you filter it, and then you give it back. So it is filtered. It's not it's, yeah. I don't say it's not. You didn't say anything. Yeah. It has filters.
What word do you use? I'm sorry to interrupt. What word do you use for cognition system?
I use the subconscious mind. We were programmed. We are a computer. I call us that part of the mind, the computer. Yeah.
Very interesting. Okay, I know that down. Okay, so this is one thing about the trying to, when I'm trying to analyze this process of listening, hearing, and reflecting. That's how I see that. And it happens on different levels because it's not just intellectual. When I was trying to reflect Edwin a few minutes ago, I was trying to understand his words, but also emotions behind those words or between lines, what he's saying between lines. I trying to get to that, and I couldn't, because as he has problem with he wants to explore this new area you open it, so it's kind of terra incognita for him. So for me was terra incognita his struggle, and I tried to get there, and I tried to find something not only in words but also between those words.
Right.
And it's also a process of hearing and reflecting.
Right. So besides that, it is a process of hearing and reflecting. It's also the emotions that play a part, and you want to get to that emotion. And in this situation with Edwin, it was harder because he was in the exploring phase. So the emotions could go anywhere, and that was hard for you to capture it because it was just he was just exploring in his mind what it was. And you think that the emotions, play a big part, how you try to capture what someone says.
I don't think that this is what I meant. Well, maybe I didn't understand you. I will try to say that different. I don't think it was intellectual what Edwin was doing. I think that Edwin is trying to do that on different levels, and I was trying to do that on different levels. So I don't think it was kind of intellectual exploring. I think when we think, we also feel.
And you want to make sure that I do not see it only as intellectual, that he was intellectual busy, that it was, it's a whole package, is at the same time feeling.
Well, you said something about listening and reflecting. What I remember from our other participant that comes very often to our meetings, Sophia, she said she was signaling kind of problem. Well, she said it's not a problem. I'm using this word because it's difficult to me to explain. She noticed this moment when we want to hear, but we want to also collect things we need to reflect then. And she felt kind of problem with finding the way to do that. She was training herself to do that. It was very complicated to understand what she meant, but it looks to me that you notice the same issue, the same thing in this process. And I see that many people during our dialogue make notes, as I start to do when you were talking. I don't do that when I'm listening and reflecting, but when I'm silent listener, I can do that. When I'm active listener, I have to completely focus. I can't write because my brain can't do that. Too many things to do. Okay, I stop there.
Yeah, so you saw or you feel or think that the problem that I brought up reminded you of a situation that Sophia mentioned, of the listening and feeling moment, and that was a hurdle in listening, and yeah, you wonder how that comes together, or
yeah. Well, I'm not sure if I experience the same thing, but I understand that there is something about. And I'm curious, what would Sophia said if she would be here? She couldn't attend to today's meeting. She told us that she can't be here today. And probably it would be interesting for you both to talk to each other and to, well, I'm curious of such exchange between you both.
yeah, so it would really be interesting to have Sophia had here, and then she and I could try to maybe elaborate on it, or getting through it that, oh, this is what we mean, what we actually are referring to.
And about responsibility. I don't believe, actually, I don't believe that, well, if I truly understand what you said, I hope so, but maybe not. But I disagree that this is a speaker responsibility to be understandable. I think it's a mutual responsibility. And a mutual help. And actually mistake and misunderstanding is the great gift we have from, even I would say, evolution. That's what develops us. Because if we do not make mistakes, if we would not misunderstand each other, we would be copies. Our message would be a copy what somebody says. We wouldn't develop. Well, actually, we wouldn't even exist. We will be still bacteria if there was no mistake in copies, in sending information between spreading bacteria or atoms. That has to be a mistake on the very primal level, and on the higher level when we have conscious. We need misunderstanding, because this is the only moment when we develop new ideas. Otherwise, we would copy each other communicating. So this is great gift that we misunderstood each other, and we have to explain to each other what we mean actually. I love it. I love when I thought that somebody thinks something and I disagree with this person, and suddenly I discover that no, this person thinks something else. It's not what I meant. It's something different. And we create new ideas this way. Okay.
Yeah, I think it was two things. One, that you disagree with me that it is the speaker's responsibility. You did not say the happiness, but that was what I was referring to. Your own satisfaction, that you feel heard, that is your responsibility. That is the part of the responsibility.
I didn't say that.
No, you did not say that, but you said you disagree that it is the responsibility of the speaker to, and then I did not know what you meant there. But the second part is that it's a great gift that we misunderstand each other, because it's also the setup. Otherwise, we wouldn't grow, and we would just be copies of someone else or what was already said. And this way, we can grow. We can really discover things and get excited about, wow, wait a minute, that person sees it that way.
Well, we actually can develop ideas, new solutions.
Yeah.
But what I meant first, it was that it's mutual responsibility. It's not one side responsibility. It's mutual.
And then I need to ask, responsibility for what?
For understanding each other.
No, that's not what I mean, but that's great that we can.
You will have, I think you will have your chance to respond to what I'm saying.
No.
Okay?
Yeah. You to the responsibility to hear each other. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that. I'm sorry.
Can I ask you to repeat the last part that you said? Both have the responsibility.
Yes, I mean that this is not, I think this is not just speaker responsibility to be understood, but it's mutual responsibility of both sides, of the speaker and the listener. They have to, they need to be willing to understand each other, and speaker has to make an effort to speak clearly, but listener also have to try to get to what the speaker says. So it's mutual responsibility for communication, for hearing and understanding each other. It's mutual. That's what I believe. And the other thing is more philosophical, that that the main factor of evolution from the atoms is the mistake of sending information. It might be on kind of biological, genetical level, but it might be also on conscious level when we communicate between our minds, our souls. Okay, thank you. I'm wrapping up. So that's the thing. Mistake is a key factor of evolution on every level. Mistake we do with understanding each other also.
Yeah. So understanding each other is a mutual responsibility, and the fact that we misunderstand each other is actually an evolutionary given, and of all the atoms and everything that works, even conscious on unconscious level, both. So that, in short.
I opened up the time, so we went way over on that one. Just let you know. Just seeing what happens, so you can be more fully heard.
Okay, I talked too long. Thank you, Celia. Thank you. Now you have chance to respond to all that happens in the meantime.
Yes, I will, because I wanted to already. So to come, if I can speak to you, back to you, Carolina.
Okay.
I was referring to the teaching in the empathy circle. And the teaching in the empathy circle is about teaching you how to listen. right? But in our empathy circles, oh, sorry, yeah.
It will be easier for me if I
Yes,
reflect you in
sure.
small parts, okay? So you making kind of correction because you feel misunderstood, and when you were talking about responsibility, you meant that it is about speaking as a teacher to students about listening, and this is a very important element of what you meant.
Not per se the teacher, but this teaching that we do with
Okay.
the empathy circle.
Okay, so you correcting me again that it's not maybe about some teacher, but about the process of teaching.
Yes, especially about this empathy circle, because I only want to
Yeah,
zoom in.
I mean, yeah, I meant teaching empathy circle. I didn't add that,
Yes,
but
yes, yes. And the phrase, "Can you reflect that back to me?" Is like a teaching phrase more.
Okay.
And when I am listening to someone and I hear, "Can you reflect that back?" It refers to I did not do a good job.
Okay, so you see a very deep parallel of this situation to the situation of teaching process,
Yeah,
and different two people in a position of teacher and pupil.
yeah,
And it's kind of when somebody says, "Can you reflect that back?" It sounds like a teacher
yeah,
talking to the pupil who has to stood up and say what he just heard, and it's kind of subjecting
yeah,
another person.
yeah.
That's what you mean?
Yes. And
Okay.
so the stress level or the in how do we learn becomes high.
Okay. Yeah, so you want to kind of underline that uh, it's kind of creates situation very similar to this school
Yeah,
situation, full
yeah,
of stress, and it's not partner relation,
right.
but kind of a
Teacher
stressful
student.
system, here hierarchy, system of hierarchy between the
Right,
speaker and listener. And this is not good for empathy, as I understand.
right. And like this is still the old system. Did I do it good enough? Like, did I learn it well? Or yes,
So this such a situation creates kind of triggered this part of our mind that
yeah,
is still in this let's say paradigm of school
yeah,
and hierarchy of teaching,
yeah,
teacher pupil
yeah,
situation,
yeah.
and it's difficult emotionally for the listener.
Yes. So that then they are blocked. The listener then is blocked, and even what the other person has said disappears from the screen.
Okay, so when something like that happens and it triggers this area of our experience and our mind and our soul that is still in school, back in school,
Yeah,
we experience that sort of stress that blocks communication, remembering,
yeah,
uh, and ability to reflect actually. So it's kind of emotional blockage.
Right, right, an emotional blockage. And so the responsibility of the speaker is to speak without blockages. And we did, I don't know, you did the 12 roadblocks with Edwin already? No. Okay, so we have done in the series 12 roadblocks in communication, but we mainly use them as blockages in listening. But I want to now open up that also the speaker has that responsibility to speak in empathic wording and not in so the wording would sound, instead of could you reflect that back to me, like I think I did not totally hear back what I wanted. So the you statement into an I statement. That is the responsibility.
Okay. So, well, this part might be difficult for me, but I will try.
No problem.
So you referring to part of Edwin workshop or training with those 12 steps, and and you talking about different approach of speaker that includes different attitude to the listener. If we want to correct something, we should use different language from you, I want you to do something, to I, from you to I. You said you use this expression, so it's change. Well, I would say it changed relation, okay?
That is it. And that will take away the student-teacher status. Just talking from your I will take that away. Yeah.
Okay, so changing that gives, put this teacher-student relation out on side, and let to build this partner relation between speaker and listener.
Yes. 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 Wow. Thank you. We got it on the table.
Thank you. That was very interesting. Thank you. Thank you. That was great, because now I truly feel what you meant when I said I don't understand. As you see, I disagree. As you see, I didn't understand you. So thank you.
And obviously I was not clear enough. Yeah. Yeah. Sorry.
And I would like to pass my, well, I have a lot to say, but I think I would like to give you, Edwin, chance to, because all time is almost up. So I would like to give you, Edwin, to
I can go longer. We could go longer if you have time, because we usually have a facilitators meeting after this, so we start a little bit late. So I don't know if you're.
Can you, Celia, stay a little bit later?
I can still a little bit later. I just want to get some more water.
Okay.
If you, just
okay. Okay.
So yeah, so I'm hearing that one, you have a lot to say, but you would like to pass it on to me so I could be heard, or have time to respond.
Yes, because you both kind of debating with each other, and I wanted to give you a chance to also respond to what Celia just said.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so you're seeing that we have sort of a difference here, sort of a debate, and that you want to be sure that I have time to be able to respond to it, as well as you were concerned about the time. So you wanted to be sure to get that in there. So how much time do we have? Like I'm pretty open, so I think maybe Celia, it's your call.
Maximum quarter past.
Okay, that gives us 25 minutes, 20 minutes.
Okay.
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 And you feel her? Is there more?
Can I
Carolyn?
continue?
Yeah, go
Can
ahead.
I continue?
Sure. Uh-huh.
So what about bridging political divides? You were, both of you said that, okay, two enemies can empathize with each other in dialogue, but then what? Actually, I believe there is something else that might happen after this. First, they have chance to stop labeling each other and see human in the other person, and it changes the relation between opponents and enemies. It creates new situation between them. They stop killing each other if they were so vicious enemies. And they might not come back to killing each other. So it's a lot that might happen if they start to see human in the other person, not just label they give to the other person. I stop there.
Yeah, so you're kind of bringing up that issue of, well, what is it with doing in the political divide, getting the sides to talk to each other? And it's like, well, so what? Then what happens? And you're saying, well, there are a lot of benefits. They might not kill each other. They might create some understanding. And you're just kind of laying out the different things that could happen. And they might kind of remember this connection and then kind of take it into the future or continue with the connection.
Maybe I'm naive, but I think that we see when we stop label the other person and see human in the other person, it changes everything. We can't behave the same way anymore. That's a very important thing in a conflict.
Yeah, is that when people see their humanity, their common humanity, I mean, the whole relationship is sort of changed.
Yeah, and I remember such situation when, for example, here in Poland, when you ask some nationalists about immigrants, they are vicious, they are furious about them. But when you talk to them about particular situation, particular family, they are ready to help them. So that shows me that this is the thing. Until they see in immigrants just label of immigrants that try to invade our country and they are dangerous and that sort of things, they are furious and they are aggressive to them. But when they see a human, what actually happens during the empathy dialogue, they completely change attitude.
Yeah, so from your experience, like if people see a class of people like, you know, immigrants, and they have one view of them, sort of negative view, but if they have a connection with one person, they're really sort of supportive and have they are kind of, you know, they see their humanity, and seeing someone's humanity, it affects all your thoughts down the way, how you're going to relate to that person. So it has a whole ripple effect, because you're coming from a different place. You're coming from a place of seeing their humanity, so that really affects your actions going forward.
That's why I believe that this might be, well, a solution to the to some conflicts. Next thing I wanted to talk, I don't remember actually. I'm lost in my notes.
Okay, kind of lost your place on your notes, not sure what to talk about next.
Well, I see that I wrote down that it is training our attitude to other people. Yeah, but I think it's about culture of empathy. learning, changing our own attitude to other people, believing in goodwill of the other person. And this is very important thing.
Mm.
And I believe in what I call professional naiveness. So it's a sort of, I believe that other people have a goodwill. We just don't understand each other. We might see things different way, but I believe that other people are good people, good persons, and they have goodwill. And sometimes they let me down, and I have to naively believe in that again until I truly get to their goodwill and good intentions, because I believe they are there. Even somebody let me down, I still need to rebuild, revive this trust and belief in somebody's goodwill. And empathy dialogue is very helpful in it.
Mm-hmm. So you have sort of philosophical or experiential experience that people have goodwill in them, and that even if they let you down or something happens, that you can get sort of past that block to that goodwill and get back to seeing that goodwill or even their humanity in them, and that you're seeing a sort of a benefit of the empathy circle that helps you kind of see the good, connect to that goodwill in people.
Yes, thank you. I feel
Okay.
heard. Thank you, Edwin.
Then I'll speak to Celia.
Okay.
Yeah, I've heard that what Carolina was saying, that same thing that and Carl Rogers in his work on empathy says the same thing, that your view is changed through seeing the humanity and kind of being heard, and you kind of change your worldview, sort of your frame of, I don't know, your just your way of being changes. Instead of being in a tightly conflicted feeling, I hate all these people, it's like, oh, I've kind of connected to these people have this humanity. And then when you go forward in life in the relationship with those people, it affects all the little minute decisions that you make. So if we can just get people to see their humanity, they're not like, making a plan or something like you might do in conflict resolution, like, here we have this plan, we're going to do this. But it does have an effect. It does change their actions in a lot of different subtle ways.
Yeah. So you're saying that what Carolina also said is something that Carl Rogers says, is that once we can see that common humanity, that it changes our whole attitude and everything. So that has a ripple effect even, and is of more importance than okay, what we're going to do now, next. It is even more important to feel really the common humanity in there.
Yeah, it's like it's a piece of that. It's like in conflict resolution, once people see their humanity, they have a foundation for doing those actions. So I don't know if you've probably done all kinds of family mediation. So once the connection is established, then they can negotiate the steps. Like, oh, we will do this. I request this. Would you do this? And they kind of talk and they come up with the real plan of action that they're going to do. And so it's a piece, we can't do everything in the empathy circle. The empathy circle wasn't made for solving everything. It's just one piece in that chain. And there's other steps that, we can do too.
Right. You really want to emphasize that it is one step, and that, but once you are on the same level or path, or you're talking about the same thing, then you can start creating the next steps, and just the empathy circle is the first step.
Yeah.
Get on the same path. Yeah.
Exactly. And then the other part was in terms of the speaker. The one thing with the empathy circle is that the speaker kind of always make a point that the speaker can say what they would like to, that not having sort of stipulations. Like I know in a lot of workshops, like speak from the heart. like there's this, oh, we want you to speak from the heart and want you to use I statements. It's like I'm saying in the empathy circle, I want it clear, like say whatever you want. You don't have to speak from the heart. Speak from your ass if you want. Speak. You don't have to use I statements, use we statements, use anything that you want, that you feel comfortable with, because you can, so to not have that barrier to, how they, what, so I guess it's kind of a free speech kind of a issue. People can be free to express themselves.
So yeah, for you it's very important, and that's also something that you set up the circle with, is that you can say whatever you want, and you have to feel free to say whatever you want, the way you want to say it, and doesn't matter I statements, you just say whatever you say. And
yeah, and people have gotten mad for me for not using I statements. It's like it's even like broken conversation. They use like, you're not using I statements. You're a fraud. It's like it's totally judged for using we. It's like it's like very strange. It becomes almost an oppressive thing in itself. The I statements, and also this thing of speaking from the heart. I've seen that used as, oh, you're not speaking from the heart. You're speaking from your head. You're a bad person. There's all that kind of judgment in this liberal, workshop-y kind of stuff. So, there's that aspect of it too. So I have kind of concerns about that.
So in the learning environment, it's vice versa then, that you statements fly all over. That you don't do this, you don't do that, and that becomes a thing by itself. And instead of that, then the listener has to do the whole package actually, and the speaker can just go do.
Well, I've just seen it in some of these workshops that I've gone to. It's like, oh, you have to speak from the heart, and then there's like a judgment if you're not speaking. Like, what is speaking from the heart? Like, I just say speak from whatever part of your body you want to speak from. If you want to speak from your hand, if you want to speak from your head, if you want to speak from your heart, that I don't want to put that onto people. It's like, you're free to say what you want. And yeah.
Yeah, and that freedom is really of most important for you, that happens.
Yeah.
Because that may also reflect the reality outdoors.
It does. Because it's hard to put out exactly. That's in the wild, right? It's like it's more attuned to what the reality is out in the right. You can't, if you even start telling people to speak from the heart at one of these rallies, or speak with I statements, which all can, I know what they're kind of getting towards, and it's, positive stuff. If you say you're kind of putting it on to the other person. It kind of puts a certain responsibility. You're doing this, you're doing that. So it puts the responsibility instead of taking self-responsibility, which I totally agree with. I mean, I totally understand that part. But I guess I kind of hope that if we can just get people just to do empathic, reflective listening, active listening to begin with, those other things can slowly be learned. Because we have a long ways to go from where people are to getting to those deeper aspects. And just doing the empathy circle itself seems like to be a really, big first step.
Right. So you say if we can only already master the listening part, then we're good to go. And the rest will come then later.
Yeah, and one thing I do is when somebody says, oh, can you just reflect this last piece or something? You say, oh, you really want me to reflect that piece. Is that right? In a sense, that the reflection turns it into an I statement for them, in a sense. Or for me, it takes the pressure off me to be able to reflect back.
Right. So,
I don't take it in as a, jab. So.
Yeah, you don't take that as you message. You just see that as that they are not satisfied yet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel satisfied. I feel.
Yeah, it's very interesting, and I think.
Who are you speaking to?
Oh, sorry, to Carolina.
Okay.
to see this whole process not only as a learning situation, but as the thing itself. But then that has to do with the topic that you're talking about.
I'm not sure if I understand you, but
yeah.
what you mean, you see very interesting all this thing. What you mean by thing?
Like I came into the circle in a learning setting. Our topic was learning to listen. That was a topic, right? So there was no political topic. That was a topic. So from that angle, I say these things. And from learning what an empathy circle is, I talk. Yeah.
I hope I got it. So you joined today's meeting because you were interested in the topic, and it was for you about learning empathy circle, but for you this call itself become also interesting, not just the topic you want to learn, but also the way we do that, and what's happening
Right.
here during the meeting is interesting.
Right. Right. And if we have freedom of speech, does that mean that we can attack the other person? Does that mean that? So that is a question that is
Okay.
a hard one for me in the politics. Yeah. Does it mean you can just
Okay.
work with anybody? Yeah.
Okay, so you have a problem with politics that is connected to the freedom of speech, and you ask for limits of this freedom. When we abuse somebody in communication, you wonder where are those limits of our freedom of speech, and that you bring up
Right.
to this discussion. Yeah.
Right. And if I am for diving into empathy, right? The word empathy, right? Can we hear it? So it's not a one way. It's not one way. It's not I have empathy for you and you can just bullshit me. Yeah.
So well, I'm not sure if I
Sorry,
got it.
I spoke with much passion, not so much analytical insight. Yeah.
I'm trying to get to that. So when we involve empathy into communication, well, as I understand, if I understand you correctly, that this freedom of speech is, we really have to understand where to stop in this full freedom when we involve empathy in a dialogue. When we empathize with,
Right.
because it might be very, as I understand, it might be very harmful for the other person if we cross some boundary.
Yeah, and people won't do empathy no more because they feel harmed themselves.
Okay. And as you see, a lot of people in politics cross the line, and that that's why people don't want to participate in an empathic dialogue, because it might cause them be harmed very seriously.
Yeah. And so it can hurt. So you get the fight, flight, or freeze situation.
Okay,
and
so
so when someone just can say, oh, this and this and this and this, and you listen empathically to that, it all of a sudden it blocks you off, because either you freeze or you fight back. You say, well, are you actually listening to yourself? So we're gonna fight too. So I do not think the talker can just say whatever they want. I think if we do an empathic circle, even the talker has to know some things that has to do with empathy.
Okay, so what I'm hearing you saying, that when such a dialogue happens and somebody behave empathically and the other person use names and behave rudely, kind of aggressively, it creates in this relation that should be empathic relation, it creates situation when the listener is in a kind of it triggers this reaction that is more kind of biological. On the biological level, it's the reaction fight or fly, or frozen, and frozen, and it's actually trigger deeper conflict, because when somebody behave empathically, it makes him or her more vulnerable, kind of more sensitive to the other person, open to the other person. And when the other person behave aggressively, it harms very deeply. And that's why the situation of fight or fly or prison appears. And actually it doesn't help being empathic. It gives an opposite effect, as I understand you.
Thank you. I feel heard.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, a new topic. Okay.
Very interesting.
Yes, it is.
I think we have to stop at this
just to keep
point.
on time.
I wanna say one thing, that that was very interesting, Celia, what you just said about this vulnerability of person who listen empathically. Yeah, that's true. But that's why I'm trying to create something that I call professional naiveness, and all the time to rebuild this state of trust and in other person. And actually that's why we need sometimes debriefing after after some actions, and street actions, or trying to empathically listen to on the street or something like that, or any protests. We need the briefing, because that's what you described happens. Actually, we might be harmed. Yeah.
Well, how about we do a quick debrief here? Just how was the circle, and any kind of final. I can keep going, but I want to keep sensitive to Celia's time.
Yeah, I just wanna say that like very often we start, well, I don't know what will gonna happen if it works, and suddenly something happens and it becomes so interesting.
Yeah.
It happens very often. I'm glad that I'm here today and I had the opportunity to listen to Celia. That was very interesting. Thank you, Celia.
You're welcome. Well, to continue, I loved it too. I know the circle has a passion for me, and I crafted some work around that, and it's still something that I've thought deeply about, and still think there are aspects that could more enrich the circle. So and I'm really glad we came to some.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, is there more?
No, that's it. And
Yeah.
I loved seeing and meeting you, Carolina. Really, I hope we connect on Facebook. That's really good. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I found it very rich too to have it. I think I got a deeper sense of what the issues were. It takes a while, but yeah, just to have that clarity of the issue about freedom of speech, you know, and the impacts and all that, I think is an important. It's actually a very political issue. I mean, it kind of comes out into the politics. That's the political right is very for the free speech, and there's a lot more to kind of go into it that I wish we had, you know, more time. We need those 4.5 hours, 5 hours like I do with the family. So
yeah, but this element of teacher-pupil relation is very important to keep in mind. I think that was very interesting.
Happily, we recorded it.
Yeah. And it's like, this is kind of what I was hoping for. I found with some of the other empathy circles where it was self-referential to the practice itself. Yeah, I'm sad that more people didn't come, because I actually find that self-referential aspect of what we're doing in the empathy circle to just be, it's very rich for me. Every one of these that I've had where it's been a self-referential topic about the empathy circle has been very insightful. So anyway, so I'm really grateful for you taking part. We can do this again. We can do it outside of this time slot too. So anytime. So it'd be great. So I'll stop the recording.